We could start this live with a prayer. Dear Lord, just be with each and every one of us today as we move throughout our day and get ready for the holiday seasons. Please be there for those in need or who are grieving or hurting right now. And just know that you are all chosen and that He loves you. Waking up, drinking my coffee. Now Abraham moved on from there into the region of Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. For a while he stayed in Gerar. And Abraham said of his wife Sarah, "She is my sister." Then Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. But God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said to him, "You are as good as dead because of the woman you have taken. She is a married woman." Now Abimelech had not gone near her, so he said, "Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Did he not say to me, 'She is my sister'? And didn't she also say, 'He is my brother'? I have done this with a clear conscience and clean hands." Then God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know you did this with a clear conscience, and so I have kept you from sinning against me. That is why I did not let you touch her. Now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. But if you do not return her, you may be sure that you and all who belong to you will die." Early the next morning, Abimelech summoned all of his officials, and when he told them all that had happened, they were very much afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said, "What have you done to us? How have I wronged you that you have brought such a great guilt upon me and my kingdom? You have done these things that should never be done. Guilt upon me and my kingdom, you have done things to me that never should have been done." And Abimelech asked Abraham, "What was your reason for doing this?" And Abraham replied, "I said to myself, there is surely no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she really is my sister, the daughter of my father, though not of my mother, and she became my wife. And when God had me wander from my father's household, I said to her, 'This is how you can show your love to me. Everywhere we go, say of me, he is my brother.' Then Abimelech brought sheep and cattle and male and female slaves and gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah his wife to him. And Abimelech said, 'My land is before you, live wherever you like.' To Sarah he said, 'I am giving your brother 1,000 shekels of silver. This is to cover the offense against you before all who are with you. You are completely benedicted.'" I cannot talk this morning. Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female slaves so that they could have children again. For the Lord had kept all the women in Abimelech's household from conceiving because of Abraham's wife Sarah. Abraham had used the same trick before to protect himself in 12:11 and 13. Although Abraham is one of the heroes of faith, he did not learn his lesson well enough the first time. In fact, by giving in to the temptation again, he risked turning a sinful act into a sinful pattern of lying whenever he suspected his life was in danger. No matter how much we love God, certain temptations are especially difficult to resist. These are the vulnerable spots in our spiritual armor. As we struggle with these weaknesses, we can be encouraged to know that God is watching out for us just like he did with Abraham. In 2011 to 13, because Abraham mistakenly assumed that Abimelech was a wicked man, he made a quick decision to tell a half-truth. Abraham thought it would be more effective to deceive Abimelech than to trust God's work in the king's life. Don't assume that God will not work in a situation that has potential problems. You may not completely understand the situation, and God may intervene when you least expect it. Why did God punish Abimelech when he had no idea Sarah was married? Even though Abimelech's intentions were good, as long as Sarah was living in his harem, he was in danger of sinning. A person who eats a poisonous toadstools thinking it's harmless mushroom, no doubt has perfectly good intentions, but will still suffer. Sin is a poison that damages us and those around us. Whether our intentions, the punishment, keeping all the women in Abimelech's household from conceiving, lasted only as long as Abimelech was in danger of sleeping with Sarah. It was meant to change the situation, not harm Abimelech. The punishment clearly showed that Abraham was in league with Almighty God. This incident may have made Abimelech respect and fear Abraham's God. And that's crazy that he didn't learn the first time. So in 21 is the birth of Isaac. Now the Lord was gracious to Sarah. As he had said, the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age at the very time God had promised him. Abraham gave him the name Isaac to the son Sarah bore him. When his son Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham circumcised him as God commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. That's bananas, guys. Bananas. Sarah said, God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. And she added, who would have said to Abram that Sarah would nursing children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. Hagar and Ishmael sent away. The child grew and was weaned, and on the day Isaac was weaned, Abraham held a great feast. But Sarah saw that the son whom Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham was mocking, and she said to Abraham, get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share an inheritance with my son Isaac. And I feel like that is so wrong because she's literally the one that kind of forced that situation. She's the one that told Abraham to sleep with her slave, to have the son, and then ended up resenting her for it. Like, girl, you did it to yourself. And now you're gonna, like, make them go away? Like, that's not the kid's fault. I kind of feel really bad for Hagar. Like, he definitely got the short end of the stick on that one. The matter distressed Abraham greatly because it concerned his son, as it should, because Hagar was still his son. But God said to him, "Do not be distressed about the boy and your slave woman. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. I will make the son of the slave into a nation also because he is your offspring." Yeah, but like, how much emotional damage did that probably do to them? Like, I wonder if Hagar felt loved. Like, did he feel like his dad didn't love him because he ends up sending him away? That's just so sad. Early the next morning, Abraham took some food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He set them on her shoulders and then sent her off with the boy. She went on. I'm sorry, I keep calling Hagar the son, but Hagar is the slave. My bad. Let's see. Oh, they don't even say his name again. Poor kid. Anyways, Hagar is the mom. Sorry, I need to correct myself. I'm still waking up, guys. Please forgive me. I haven't fully got my coffee in. But that does really bother me, like how the slave's son felt in this situation. First of all, like, he doesn't ask to be born. Sarah basically forces Abraham to sleep with the slave so she can have a child through him, and then tells Abraham he has to get rid of them once she has her own son. Like, that's so messed up in so many ways, guys. It really bothers me as a mom. It just... So, in 14, early the next morning, Abraham took some food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He set them on her shoulders and then sent her off with the boy. The boy. You ain't name him. She went on her way and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went off and sat down in a bowshot away, for she thought, "I cannot watch the boy die." And she sat there and she began to sob. Could you imagine as a mom being forced out of the household and thinking that, you know, you're alone basically in a desert with no water and your son's gonna die? Like, that's devastating. And God heard the crying, and God heard the boy crying. And the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has..." Sorry, my dog is drinking water. He's really warm. "God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation." Seriously, Cain? All that? Okay. Yes, my dog's name is King. Chajoy. Then God opened her eyes and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin with water and gave it to the boy to drink. God was with the boy as he grew up. Why do they keep calling him the boy? I think they say his name a few chapters back, but it's been a couple weeks, so I don't remember what the boy's name was. So anyone in the chat knows what Hagar's son's name was, let me know. I just don't like to keep calling him boy. Like, give him, say his name. God was with the boy as he grew up. Oh my goodness, Cain. Calm down, bro. It was just water. God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer. While he was living in the desert of Paran, his mother got a wife for him from Egypt. So in 21 through 1 through 7, who could believe that Abraham would have a son at 100 years old and live to raise him to adulthood? But doing the impossible is everyday business for God. Our big problems won't seem so impossible if we let God handle them. (21:7) After repeated promises, a visit by two angels, and the appearance of the Lord himself, Sarah finally cried out with surprise and joy at the birth of her son. Because of her doubt, worry, and fear, she had forfeited the peace she could have felt in God's wonderful promise to her. The way to bring peace to a troubled heart is to focus on God's promise. Trust him to do what he says he's going to do. What happened to, let's see, where am I past that? Okay. What happened to Ishmael and who are his, we got a name, Ishmael. That's right. What happened to Ishmael and who are his descendants? Ishmael became the ruler of a large tribe or nation. The Ishmaelites were nomads living in the desert of Sinai and Paran, south of Israel. Sorry if I'm saying any of that wrong. One of Ishmael's daughters married Esau, Ishmael's nephew. 28:9. The Bible pictures that the Ishmaelites as hostile to Israel and to God. So I feel like in this sin of Sarah forcing her slave onto Abraham and having their son, it's almost like he was like cursed in a way. Like it was putting brother against brother and a nation against nation. Like, that's crazy. And was it all to play out for end times? Like, I don't know. It's just weird. The treaty at Beersheba. At the time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, said to Abraham, God is with you in everything that you do. Now swear to me here before God that you will not deal falsely with me or my children or my descendants. Show to me the country where you now reside as a foreigner, the same kindness I have shown for you. And Abraham said, I swear it. Then Abraham complained to Abimelech about a well of water that Abimelech's servants had seized, but Abimelech said, I don't know who has done this. You did not tell me, and I heard it only about it today. Sounds like me at work. That's so funny. So Abraham brought sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a treaty. Abraham set apart 7 ewe lambs from the flock, and Abimelech asked Abraham, what is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs you have set apart by themselves? And he replied, accept these 7 lambs from my hands as a witness that I dug this well, so this place will be called Beersheba, because the 2 men swore an oath here. Beersheba in 21 to 31. Beersheba was the southernmost city of Israel, lay on the edge of a vast desert that stretched as far as Egypt to the southwest and Mount Sinai to the south. The area described as being from Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south was often used to describe the traditional boundaries of the Promised Land. In 2 Samuel 17:11, Beersheba's southern location and the presence of several wells in the area may explain why Abraham settled there. Beersheba was also the home of Isaac, Abraham's son. Now, I love how it goes through and it breaks down the people, and this is an application study Bible, so it literally breaks down everything. So Isaac, a name carries great authority. It sets you apart. It triggers memories. The sound of it calls you to attention anywhere. Many Bible names accomplish this even more. They were often descriptions of important facts about one's past and hopes for the future. The choice of the name Isaac, he laughs, for Abraham and Sarah's son, must have created a variety of feelings in them each time it was spoken. At the time, it must have recalled their shocked laughter at God's announcement that they would be parents in their old age. At other times, it must have brought back the joyful feelings of receiving their long-awaited answered prayers for a child. Most importantly, it was a testimony to God's power in making his promise a reality. In a family of forceful initiators, Isaac was the quiet, mind my own business type unless he was specifically called on to take action. He was the protected only child from the time Sarah got rid of Ishmael until Abraham arranged his marriage to Rebekah. In his own family, Isaac had the patriarchal position, but Rebekah had the power. Rather than stand his ground, Isaac found it easier to compromise or lie to avoid confrontations. In spite of these shortcomings, Isaac was part of God's plan. A model his father gave him included a great gift of faith in the one true God. God's promise to create a nation through which he would be blessed the world was passed on by Isaac to his two sons. It is usually not hard to identify with Isaac and his weaknesses. But consider for a moment that God's work through people in spite of their shortcomings and often through them. As you pray, put into words your desire to be available to God. You will discover that his willingness to use you is even greater than your desire to be used. So, what were the strengths and accomplishments of Isaac? He was the miracle child born to Sarah and Abraham when Sarah was 90 years old and Abraham was 100. He was the first descendant in fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham. He seemed to be a caring and consistent husband, at least until his sons were born. He demonstrated great patience. What was Isaac's weaknesses and mistakes? Under pressure, he tended to lie. He seemed to get that from his dad. In conflict, he sought to avoid confrontation. He played favorites between his sons and alienated his wife. Lessons from his life. Patience often brings rewards. Both God's plan and his promise are larger than people. God keeps his promises. He remains faithful, though we were often faithless. Playing favorites is sure to bring family conflict. Vital statistics. Where? The area called Negev in the southern part of Palestine between Kadesh and Shur. Genesis 21. Occupation, wealthy livestock owner. Relatives, parents Abraham and Sarah, half-brother Ishmael, wife Rebecca, sons Jacob and Ishmael. Hold on, I can check my dog. I feel like he's got something. Okay, we're good. He got his toy. You got your toy? Okay. Sorry, guys. Make sure he wasn't chewing on something important. He's only a year old, so he gets into stuff. Key verse. Then God said, "Yes, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him." Genesis 17:19. Isaac's story is told in Genesis 17:15, 35 through 29. He is also mentioned in Romans 9:7, 8, Hebrews 11:17 through 20, and James 2:21 through 24. After the treaty had been made at Beersheba, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, returned to the land of Philistine. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba. There he called on the name of the Lord, the eternal God. And Abraham stayed in the land of Philistine for a long, long time. Abraham tested in 22. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, "Abraham, here I am," he replied. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son who you love, Isaac." That's so sad. So he didn't love Ishmael? I feel bad for him. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." Early the next morning, Abraham got up, loaded his donkey, took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he cut engine wood for the burnt offering, he set out a place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you." Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, "Father?" "Yes, my son," Abraham replied. "The fire and the wood are here," Isaac said, "but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son," and the 2 of them went on together. When they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar, on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from the heaven, "Abraham, Abraham!" "Here I am," he replied. "Do not lay a hand on the boy," he said. "Do not do anything to him. Now I know you fear God because you have not withheld me, your son, your only son." Abraham looked up and there in a thicket saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, "The Lord will provide." And to this day it is said, "On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided." The angel of the Lord called to Abraham from the heaven a second time and said, "I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this, You have not withheld your son, your only son. I will surely be blessed you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and the sands on the seashore. I mean, imagine how many stars and sand there is in the world. Like, that's almost too much that makes your brain hurt. Then Abraham returned to his servants, and they set off together for Beersheba, and Abraham stayed in Beersheba. Nor's sons. Sometime later, Abraham was told, Milcah is also a mother. She has borne sons to your brother Nor. Uz, the firstborn. Buz was his brother Kemuel, the father of Aram. Kesed, Hazel, Thildash, Jildath, and Bethuel. Bethuel became the father of Rebekah, and Milcah bore these 8 sons to Abraham's brother Nor. His concubine, whose name was Reumah, also had sons, Teba, Gama, Tash, and Maki. So in 22:1, God tested Abraham not to trip him or watch him fall, but to deepen his capacity to obey God and thus develop his character. Just as fire refines ore to extract precious metals, God refines us through difficult circumstances. When we are tested, we can complain, or we can try to see how God is stretching us to develop our character. In 22:3, that morning Abraham began one of the greatest acts of obedience in recorded history. He traveled 50 miles to Mount Moriah, near the site of Jerusalem. Over the years, he learned many tough lessons about the importance of obeying God. This time, his obedience was prompt and complete. Obeying God is often a struggle because it means giving up something we truly want. We should not expect our obedience to God to be easy or to overcome naturally. We don't know how Abraham carried the fire. Perhaps he carried a live coal or a flint to start the fire. In 22:7-8, why did God ask Abraham to perform human sacrifice? Pagan nations practiced human sacrifice, but God condemned this as a terrible sin in Leviticus 20:1-5. God did not want Isaac to die, but he wanted Abraham to sacrifice Isaac in his heart, so he would be clear to Abraham loved God more than he loved his promise in his long-awaited son. God was testing Abraham. The purpose of testing his strength is to strengthen our character and deepen our commitment to God and his perfect timing. Though this was a difficult experience, Abraham strengthened his commitment to obey God. He also learned about God's ability to provide. In 22:12, it is difficult to let go of what we deeply love. We could be more proper than to love your only child, yet when we do give to God what he asks, he returns to us far more than we could dream. The spiritual benefits of his blessings far outweigh our sacrifice. Have you withheld your love, your children, or your time from him? Trust him to provide. 22:8. In 22:13, notice the parallels between the ram offered on the altar as a substitute for Isaac and Christ offered on the cross as a substitute for us. Whereas God stopped Abraham from sacrificing his son, God did not spare his own son, Jesus, from dying on the cross. If Jesus had lived, the rest of humankind would have died. God sent his only son to die for us that we could be spared from the eternal death we deserve, instead receive eternal life. John 3:16. Lost my place. 22:15-18. Abraham received abundant blessings because he obeyed God. God promised to give Abraham's descendants the ability to conquer their enemies. In addition, God promised Abraham children and grandchildren who would in turn bless the whole earth. People's lives would be changed as a result of knowing the faith of Abraham and his descendants. We often think of blessings as a gift that we enjoy, but when God blesses us, his blessings may overflow to others, to today and to eternity. Okay, and before we end on that note, because we did 20 through 22, we went over Isaac's. Now we're going to go over Hagar. Escape of some kind is usually the most tempting solution to our problems. In fact, it can become a habit. Hagar was a person who used that approach. When the going got tough, she usually got going in the other direction. I don't know why I keep thinking Ishmael's, I keep confusing Ishmael and Hagar. Sorry, guys. However, it is worthwhile to note that the biggest challenges Hagar faced were brought on by the other people's choices. Sarah chose her to bear Abraham's child, and Hagar probably had little to say in the matter. It isn't hard to understand how Hagar's pregnancy caused her to look down on Sarah, but that brought on hard feelings, and Sarah consequently punished Hagar. This motivated her first escape. When she returned to the family and gave birth to Ishmael, Sarah's continued barrenness must have contributed to the bitterness on both sides. When Isaac was finally born, Sarah looked for any excuse to have Hagar and Ishmael sent away. She found it when she caught Ishmael teasing Isaac. In the desert, out of water, and facing death of her son, Hagar once again tried to escape. She walked away so she would not have to watch her son die. Once again, God graciously intervened. Have you noticed how patiently God operates to make our escape attempts fail? Have you begun to learn that escape is only a temporary solution? God's continual desire is for us to face our problems with his help. We experience his help most clearly in and through conflicts and difficulties, not away from them. Are there problems in your life for which you have been using the Hagar solution? Choose one of those problems, ask God for help, and begin to face it today. So, what was Hagar's strengths and accomplishments? Mother of Abraham's first child, Ishmael, who became founder of the Arab nations. Weaknesses and mistakes. When faced with problems, she tended to run away. Her pregnancy brought out strong feelings of pride and arrogance. Lessons from her life. God is faithful to his plans and promises, even when humans complicate the process. God shows himself as one who knows us and wants to be known by us. The New Testament uses Hagar as a symbol of one of those who would pursue favor with God by their own efforts, rather than trusting his mercy and forgiveness. Vital statistics: where? Canaan and Egypt. Occupation: servant, mother. Relatives: son, Ishmael. Key verse: Then the angel of the Lord told her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her." Genesis 16:9. Hagar's story is told in Genesis 16 through 21. She is also mentioned in Galatians 4:24 through 25. So the next time that we come on, we will be starting on Genesis 23, the death of Sarah. I hope you guys have a wonderful and blessed day, and thank you for staying tuned for more. Bye, guys.